The shuttle descended through the bruised skies of Zalara 4, a world where storms seemed permanent fixtures above the horizon. Inside the cramped cabin, Lance Corporal Jack Mason checked his gear for the third time, ensuring every item was secure, a habit born from too many close calls in training. "New blood." The sneer came from across the aisle, where a group of seasoned soldiers clad in battle-worn exosuits watched him. Their insignia marked them as members of the 22nd Galactic Infantry, known across the systems for their brutal effectiveness and merciless teasing of newcomers. "Looks like a stiff breeze would blow you over, rookie," one of them chuckled, his voice muffled through the helmet's comm. Jack's gaze flicked to the speaker, Sergeant Krell, a hulking figure whose reputation for crushing enemy skulls was as renowned as his disdain for recruits. He resisted the urge to retort. His father, a decorated veteran, had taught him the value of silence in the face of provocation. As the shuttle landed with a jolt, the soldiers gathered their weapons ready to disembark. The base commander, Captain Ilara Tain, awaited them at the airlock, her expression stern yet not unkind. "Welcome to Delta Base, the spearhead of humanity's defense on the frontier," Captain Tain announced as they stepped onto the alien soil. Her eyes briefly met Jack's, a flash of recognition there. She had served with his father and knew the stock from which he came. Delta Base was a sprawling complex of metallic structures, heavily fortified and bristling with armaments. It stood as a lone bastion against the threats lurking beyond the colony's borders, mostly pirates and raiders, but rumors of something far more sinister had begun to circulate. Jack was assigned to Sergeant Krell's squad, an opportunity to learn from the best, albeit under the most unforgiving conditions. As they toured the base, Krell's voice was a constant jab in his ear. "Stay sharp, rookie. The enemies here don't care about your daddy's medals." Their first patrol was a routine sweep of the perimeter, a task often delegated to the newest squad members as a form of initiation. The landscape outside the base was a tapestry of gray rocks and swirling red dust, visibility often reduced to a few meters, a sniper's nightmare. As they moved through a narrow canyon, Jack's training kicked in. His senses heightened. He noticed an irregularity in the dust pattern on the ground, an indication of recent movement. Before he could report it, a sharp crack split the air. "Ambush!" Energy blasts streaked from the high ridges, the bright arcs of plasma illuminating the attackers' positions. Krell's squad reacted instantly, returning fire with disciplined bursts. "Incoming! Rookie, to the front! Show us what you're made of!" Krell shouted, thrusting Jack into the line of fire. Jack's heart raced, but his hands were steady. He remembered the simulations, the endless drills. He ducked behind a rock, peeking out to acquire his targets. 1, 2, 3. His shots were precise, each burst finding its mark. An enemy fell from the ridge, surprised by the ferocity and accuracy of the new soldier. As the firefight dwindled and the attackers retreated, Krell clapped a heavy hand on Jack's shoulder, a rare sign of approval. "Not bad, rookie. Maybe you're not as useless as you look." The squad made their way back to base, the mood noticeably lighter. They had survived another encounter, and Jack had proven his worth, not just as the son of a hero, but as a soldier in his own right. That night, as Jack lay in his bunk, the weight of his father's legacy felt a little lighter. He was no longer just the rookie. He was a soldier of Delta Base, and tomorrow he would face whatever came with a bit more respect from his peers. And unbeknownst to them all, high above in the dark expanse of space, eyes watched, calculating, plotting. The true test of Delta Base's mettle was yet to come. As dawn broke over Zalara 4, the red sunlight filtered through the swirling dust clouds, casting an ominous glow on Delta Base. Jack, now slightly more respected among his peers, prepped his gear beside the others, feeling the newfound weight of responsibility. The day's mission was critical, a reconnaissance patrol to the eastern sector where sensor anomalies had been reported. Unknown to the soldiers, this area was closer to the unexplored territories, rumored to harbor more than just the average raiders. "Stay alert!" Krell barked as they marched through the rugged terrain, their boots kicking up clouds of dust with each step. "This isn't a training exercise!" The landscape changed as they progressed. the ground becoming rockier and the air thicker with a strange metallic scent. Jack's scanner beeped intermittently, signals distorted in a way that suggested electronic interference. Without warning, the ground beneath them trembled. A low rumble escalated into a violent quake, throwing several soldiers off their feet. Jack clung to a large boulder, eyes scanning for the source of the disturbance. "Form up!" Krell commanded, rallying the squad into a defensive circle. But before they could fully regroup, the earth split open, revealing a gaping chasm from which strange, armored beings emerged. They were unlike any foe Jack had encountered. Their bodies were encased in sleek black armor, seemingly part of their very skin, and their eyes glowed with a chilling, unnatural blue. The alien soldiers wasted no time, opening fire with advanced weaponry that hummed with energy. Krell's squad returned fire, but it was clear they were outmatched in both firepower and tactics. "Fall back!" Krell's voice cut through the chaos, but as they retreated, a direct hit from an alien weapon sent him sprawling to the ground, injured. Jack made a split-second decision. "Cover me!" he yelled, darting forward to drag Krell to safety. Bullets whizzed past, a deadly symphony around him. Reaching Krell, he hoisted the sergeant over his shoulder, his adrenaline surging as he ran back to the cover of his squad. The aliens paused, seemingly surprised by his audacity. Utilizing this moment, Jack's squad unleashed a barrage of fire, forcing the aliens to momentarily retreat. With Krell injured, command fell to Jack. "We need to extract ASAP. Call for backup." His voice was steady, his orders clear, even as his mind raced to process the day's harrowing events. As they maneuvered back toward the base, the sky darkened prematurely, heavy with the threat of a storm. The alien encounter had shifted something fundamental in the conflict dynamics on Zalara 4. It wasn't just about survival now. It was about understanding who their new enemy was and what they wanted. Back at the base, the medics took over, rushing Krell to the infirmary while the rest of the squad debriefed. Jack stood before Captain Tane, reporting the encounter in detail. Her face was grave as she listened, her mind already calculating the implications. "Prepare for a long engagement," she finally said, her eyes meeting Jack's. "This changes everything." As the winds picked up outside, howling against the compound's shields, Jack felt the isolation of the distant outpost more acutely than ever. They were on their own out here, far from reinforcements, standing on the frontier of an unknown war. Yet, despite the uncertainty, Jack felt a resolve hardening within him. They would stand their ground, come what may. The night at Delta Base was a tempest both outside and within. As the winds battered the metallic structures, the minds of its occupants whirled with equal turmoil. Jack, barely catching moments of rest, was up before the others, poring over the reconnaissance data and sensor readings from their last encounter. In the command center, Jack and Captain Tane, along with the base's senior strategists, analyzed the aliens' tactics. It was evident these beings were not mere marauders. Their coordination suggested military training, and their technology was advanced, possibly beyond anything human forces had encountered before. "We need to capture one," Captain Tane decided, her strategy clear and somewhat risky. Understanding their technology could be the key to repelling them effectively. Jack was assigned to lead a small team on this dangerous mission. They equipped themselves with specialized gear, including nets designed to disrupt energy fields, hypothesizing that it might counteract the aliens' armor. As they set out under the cloak of darkness, the alien forces seemed to anticipate their movements, ambushing them at a narrow pass. The firefight was intense, lighting up the night sky with bursts of energy. Using the chaos as a cover, Jack and two others flanked the alien lines, managing to isolate one of their soldiers. The struggle was fierce. The alien was incredibly strong, its movements almost a blur. But determination fueled Jack's actions, driven by the need to protect his comrades and perhaps all of humanity. With a coordinated effort, they deployed the net, and it worked. The alien's movements slowed, its energy armor flickering out. They subdued the creature, binding it securely. Jack looked into its glowing eyes, seeing not just a foe, but a being intelligent and perhaps as frightened as they were. The return to the base was a silent march, each soldier lost in thought. The alien, restrained but alive, was a mystery that held many answers they desperately needed. In the secure confines of the research lab, the base's top scientists began their examination of the alien, while Jack observed from behind the safety glass. The creature's armor was part of its body, biotechnological and incredibly complex. It communicated through a series of clicks and whirs, none of which translated through their standard language modules. As they worked, an alert sounded throughout the base. The sensors had picked up a massive incoming force, far larger than any before. The aliens were coming, perhaps in response to the capture of their comrade. "Battle stations!" Captain Tane's voice echoed through the corridors. "This is not a drill." Jack suited up, his resolve hardening. This was no longer about mere survival, but about defending their ground, proving that humanity could not be easily overrun. The base's defenses activated, turrets swiveling into position as soldiers took their posts. The sky turned a fiery red as alien ships descended, their silhouettes ominous against the burning horizon. The battle began with a deafening roar as both sides exchanged heavy fire. Jack commanded his unit with precision, his earlier experiences honing his instincts. They moved like parts of a well-oiled machine, holding back the initial waves of attackers. But the aliens were relentless. Their numbers seemed endless, their tactics adapting with each passing minute. Jack realized this fight would test every bit of their strength and cunning. Amidst the chaos, a sudden realization struck him. Their captive might be key not just for research, but as a bargaining chip. Could they negotiate? Was there room for parley? These thoughts were cut short as a new wave of attackers surged forward. Jack refocused, rallying his troops. This was a fight for the future, and they would meet it head-on, whatever it might bring. As the battle raged at Delta Base, Jack surveyed the battlefield with a critical eye. The enemy's tactics had shifted. They were no longer just assaulting. They were strategizing, coordinating attacks that aimed at the base's weakest points. Despite the relentless onslaught, a part of Jack's mind worked furiously on another problem: the possibility of communicating with the captive alien. In a brief respite between waves, Jack approached Captain Tane with his suggestion. "We might use the captive to communicate or even negotiate. If there's a chance to end this without further bloodshed, we should take it." Captain Tane regarded him with a mixture of skepticism and consideration. After a moment, she nodded. "Prepare a team. I'll give you the clearance. But be cautious, Jack. We don't know their motives, nor their capacity for deception." Equipped with translation devices and recording equipment, Jack and a small team of linguistic and behavioral experts moved to the secure holding facility. The alien, still restrained, watched them with an unreadable expression as they set up their equipment. The first attempts at communication were clumsy, the device spitting out garbled noises that made the alien agitate. Gradually, adjustments were made, frequencies tuned until a stream of clear, albeit mechanical voice emanated from the translator. "Why have you attacked us?" Jack began, his voice steady despite the tension. The alien paused, its eyes narrowing. "Survival," it responded, its voice resonating with a metallic echo. "Territory, expansion." Jack pressed on. "Is there room for peace between your people and ours?" "Peace," it repeated, tilting its head, considering the word. "Possibly, but strength must be respected, weakness exploited." The exchange was interrupted by another wave of attacks. The base shook under the impact of heavy artillery, a reminder that the situation outside was deteriorating. Jack left the interrogation in the hands of the experts and returned to the front lines. The air outside was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning metal. The alien forces had deployed a new type of warrior, larger and more heavily armored than the others. These juggernauts pushed forward, shrugging off the base's defensive fire. Jack coordinated a counterattack, directing his soldiers to focus their firepower on the juggernauts. Explosive rounds and concentrated energy beams finally brought one down, but not without cost. Several of his men were injured, the medics working frantically to stabilize them. As he helped drag a wounded comrade to safety, a message from Captain Tane came through his comm link. "Jack, the alien has proposed a truce. They want to parley. You need to come back." Hurrying back to the holding area, Jack found the room abuzz with cautious optimism. The alien had provided coordinates for a meeting place, away from the base, where leaders from both sides could discuss terms. "Prepare a team," Captain Tane instructed, looking to Jack as the obvious choice to lead the delegation. "This could be a trap, but it's a chance we have to take." As they prepared for the parley, Jack felt the weight of the moment on his shoulders. This meeting could end the conflict or plunge them deeper into war. With a small team of soldiers and diplomats, he set out for the coordinates, each step taking them further into unknown territory. The meeting point was a desolate plain, away from the canyons and rock formations that characterized much of Zalara 4. As they approached, alien figures emerged from the shadow of a large parked spacecraft, their body language cautiously neutral. Jack stepped forward, his heart pounding, aware that the eyes of both species were upon him, waiting to see if this young soldier could help forge a path toward peace, or whether the storm of war would continue to rage unabated. The plane was bathed in the stark, unyielding light of Zalara 4's twin suns as Jack and his team approached the designated meeting spot. The alien delegation stood waiting, their armor shimmering subtly, reflecting the harsh sunlight in waves of iridescent color. It was a surreal tableau, each group observing the other with a mix of wariness and curiosity. The lead alien, taller and seemingly more decorated than the others, stepped forward as Jack closed the distance. His translator was ready, the previous tweaks having made communication possible, albeit imperfect. "We meet in no man's land to discuss peace," Jack stated clearly, his voice carrying across the open space. "Why now? Why reach out only after so much conflict?" The alien leader, whose armor was marked with glyphs that glowed softly, responded, his voice resonating through the translator. "Conflict was to test strength, to understand. Your resistance has shown value. Now potential for coexistence is seen." Jack nodded, processing the alien logic. It was foreign, difficult to fully grasp, but it offered a sliver of hope. "What terms do you propose?" "Territory sharing, resource allocation, technology exchange," the alien listed, each offer echoing slightly in the thin air. The proposals were more generous than Jack had anticipated. He glanced back at his team, seeing their mixed reactions: hope, distrust, surprise. "And if we agree, how do we ensure compliance? How do we trust after so much deception?" "Trust builds over time," the alien replied. "Pacts made now will be small. Build from small truths to greater." Jack thought it over. It was a cautious approach, starting with less critical areas of cooperation and building up to more significant commitments. "We will need to discuss these terms with our leaders. This is a start, but it's not enough for a full agreement today." "Understood. Another meeting will be necessary," the alien agreed, nodding slightly. As the delegations prepared to part ways, a sudden alert came through Jack's comm link. He touched his earpiece, his expression turning grim as he listened to the urgent report. "Sir, new readings from the base's sensors. Another fleet, much larger than the last, is approaching orbit. It's massive." The news hit like a physical blow. Jack turned to the alien leader, his eyes hard. "Is this your doing? A trap?" The alien leader looked genuinely taken aback. "No, this is not our action. Trouble comes for both of us now." The atmosphere tensed, the brief moment of diplomacy overshadowed by the looming threat. Jack made a quick decision. "We need to verify this. Our base is open to you to observe our data. If what you say is true, then this new threat could force our hands quicker than expected." The alien leader nodded, and together, they quickly arranged for a joint task force to return to Delta Base. The walk back to their respective crafts was tense, each step weighted with the potential for a new, even more dangerous conflict than they had prepared for. Upon returning to the base, Jack and the alien delegation were ushered into the command center. Screens flickered with streams of data, the incoming fleet specifications making everyone's worst fears tangible. It was not just large. It was a force capable of wiping out entire planets. "This is beyond our current capabilities," Captain Tane announced grimly. "If we are to survive this, it will have to be together." The aliens consulted among themselves, their clicking speech a rapid exchange. Finally, the leader turned back to the humans. Agreement is necessary. Immediate. We will join against this threat. As plans were hastily drawn, Jack felt a strange kinship with these former foes, their mutual survival now intertwined. They were about to engage in a battle that was unforeseen, their tentative truce their only advantage against the dark tide approaching from the stars. The command center at Delta Base buzzed with a frenetic energy as human and alien technicians worked side by side, a sight few would have imagined possible just days earlier. Jack oversaw the integration of alien technology with human systems, a critical task that needed to be executed flawlessly to stand any chance against the incoming fleet. Captain Tane coordinated the defense strategy, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. We need every gun, every ship ready to engage. This isn't just about protecting a base anymore. It's about protecting our future. Outside, the sky darkened as the massive fleet entered the upper atmosphere, blotting out the light of the twin suns. The sight was daunting. Hundreds of ships, their outlines sharp and menacing against the dimming light. Jack stood beside the alien leader, watching the display screen showing the advancing fleet. They're almost upon us, he remarked, tension lining his voice. Yes, but together we are stronger, the alien leader responded, his tone conveying an unexpected solidarity. The first wave of the attack was brutal. Alien and human ships darted through the sky, lasers and energy projectiles slicing through the air. The base's shields flared with each impact, holding firm against the onslaught. Jack found himself in the thick of the action, piloting one of the mixed technology fighters they had managed to cobble together. The hybrid fighter was nimble, its alien-enhanced shields absorbing more damage than their older models could have handled. As the battle raged, a larger enemy vessel broke through the defensive line, its cannons aimed directly at the heart of Delta Base. Jack, seeing the imminent threat, made a split-second decision. He directed his fighter towards the vessel, weaving through a hail of fire. "Cover me!" he shouted over the comm, and his squadron fell in behind him, providing the cover fire he desperately needed. Approaching the enemy vessel, Jack deployed a series of charges along its hull, a tactic learned from the aliens. He pulled away at the last moment, the charges detonating and tearing a gaping hole in the vessel's side. It drifted, disabled, its threat momentarily neutralized. The ground forces cheered as the sky lit up with the explosion, but the victory was short-lived. More enemy ships pressed forward, relentless in their assault. Jack regrouped with the others, assessing the situation quickly. "We have to keep pushing them back," he commanded, diving back into the fray. The battle stretched on, hours blurring into an endless stream of dodges, attacks, and narrow escapes. Finally, as if in response to their sheer determination, the tide began to turn. The enemy, overwhelmed by the unexpected resilience and newfound tactics of the Allied forces, started to retreat. As the last of the enemy's ships warped out of the system, a weary cheer went up from the base. Jack landed his fighter, stepping out onto the tarmac that had seen so much chaos in the last few hours. His clothes were singed, his face smudged with soot, but his eyes were clear, bright with the light of victory. Captain Tane approached, her expression one of profound relief mixed with pride. "You did well, Jack. We couldn't have asked for a better outcome." "And we wouldn't have survived without the Alliance," Jack replied, glancing over at the alien leader who was joining them. "It seems we're stronger together than apart." The alien nodded, his eyes reflecting a war-hardened respect. "This battle is won, but the war for peace is just beginning. Let us continue together." As the cleanup began and the wounded were tended to, Jack looked out over the base, its defenses scarred but intact. They had faced annihilation and survived, not just through firepower, but through unity. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and potential threats, but as he stood there among his new allies, Jack felt a surge of hope. Together, they would face whatever came next, forging a path not just for survival, but for a lasting peace.